They said Nick Chubb was going to be a cap casualty. They said he wasn't going to be a Cleveland Brown next year. They said the Browns, in order to get cap space, are going to need to cut Nick Chubb. Nevertheless, they were all wrong after hearing Mary Kay Cabot's report. Nick Chubb is going to be a Cleveland Brown next year, everybody. Despite everybody talking about all the speculation of if Nick Chubb is going to be a Brown next year, here I am calmly about to talk about who Nick Chubb's backup is going to be this year, everybody. Look, all the Nick Chubb, whether he was going to be a Brown next year or not noise, it was all white noise to me. If you know the salary cap, if you know how the Browns, how easily really this offseason they're going to be able to create space to spend money this offseason, you weren't really worried about this Nick Chubb situation. The Browns did not have to cut Nick Chubb in order to get salary cap space. It's way easier than that. It is way less risky than that. With some simple restructures and whatnot, man, look, the Browns will be just fine, everybody. Other than that, though, we have come here to talk about two dudes that I think the Browns need to look at. Two dudes that if they got one of these guys, I'd be ecstatic about the signing and how the Browns running back room would look if they added one of these two dudes to be the Browns backup running back next to Nick Chubb, everybody. Now, look, I feel it is paramount this year that the Browns, with their situation with Nick Chubb, get them an adequate backup running back. I think it's very important. Look, we don't know if Nick Chubb is going to be ready by week 1. We don't know if he's going to be ready for even the first quarter, 4 weeks of the season, everybody. If that is going to be the case, you need a guy who is going to step in his place and make this an adequate run game. Because obviously last year, especially towards the end of the season, with Jerome Ford and even Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong in the mix, we just did not have a productive running game that could move the needle or help out the pass game in any way. So with Deshaun Watson coming back, even if the pass game is not clicking, you need something to lean on. Other than that, too, you need a run game that can help you on early downs. It makes your life as a pass game a lot easier if you can have a run game that helps you on early downs. Without Nick Chubb, you're going to need a guy who can help you do that. I don't believe Jerome Ford is really the guy at this point in his career that can help you do that. So I think these two guys that I'm about to name right here are really going to help the Browns not only have a productive running back before Nick Chubb is ready to come back, but I also think that even when Nick Chubb comes back, it is going to be paramount to have Nick Chubb be in a situation where he is being spared after an injury, because you cannot just have him be your bell cow workhorse running back after an injury like that. I think it is going to be really important to really be able to spare Nick Chubb and have somebody behind him that can adequately and productively pick up the load when Nick Chubb is off the field. I also think it's just going to be important to have a guy behind Nick Chubb who can spare Nick Chubb in terms of prolonging his career, because the less you have Nick Chubb out there, the less wear and tear he's taken. So not only do I believe you need to have a guy in that running back room who is going to be ready if Nick Chubb is not there by week 1, but I also think when even Nick Chubb comes back, you are going to need a guy who can pick up the load and keep his legs fresh. I just feel looking at Jerome Ford, he's too inconsistent. He's not a good enough outside runner. He hasn't really mastered being a one-cut running back, and he's not really physical enough and willing to take those hits and really bounce off of tacklers when taking the outside runs. So I just feel like you need a guy who can run more variation of concepts, and you need a guy who is going to just be more consistent overall and is more talented and more elusive. With that being said, let's actually get to and mention the two guys that I think the Browns need to look at this offseason as some backup running backs that can help out Nick Chubb this year and for however long he's going to be a Cleveland Brown. Both of the guys are free agents this year. If you can't get either one of these guys, I feel like you should look at the trade market. But let's go ahead and name these two guys. First, I'm going to start off with a guy who I would be happy if the Browns got, just not as happy as if they got the guy who I'm going to present last. With that being said, let me present to you Zack Moss, everybody. Look, he had a 700-plus yard season in Indianapolis this year. Look, he was incredible stepping in for Jonathan Taylor when he needed to at the beginning of this year when Jonathan Taylor got hurt. He looked like a certified number 1 running back. Zack Moss was getting the job done when he needed to step up as that number 1 running back when his star running back is out. Isn't that what we might need out of the backup running back if Nick Chubb were to be gone for the first few weeks of the season? And even at that, Zack Moss proved that not only can he be a guy who can step up as a number one running back if your number one running back previously goes out, but he can also be a guy that, as a number two running back, when your star running back is there, can provide you with some really nice production beside your star running back and allow you to have a good running game no matter who is on the field. So I think Zack Moss is incredible in that way. He showed you he can get it done as a productive number two and a productive number one if you need him to carry that load in either way. I think he'd be available at a good price too. He's going to be in that $4 million to maybe $6 or $7 million range. I think that'd be a good price for what the Browns are going to be asking of him this season if they were to get Zack Moss. So I think it would be a great price to be able to get Zack Moss. And I think given that he's a great goal line back, the fact that he's also a good receiving back, he's productive, has produced in a backup role and a starting role, he's ready for whatever. The fact that he's a physical back who can take those hits, bounce off tacklers, and get things done on the outside, and the fact that he's an explosive running back and can make plays, I think he's an incredible guy to look at as a guy who could get the job done as the Browns' number two running back behind Nick Chubb. With all that positive stuff being said, though, look, I got to be honest. I got to look at all facets of it. I got to tell the truth about Zack Moss. I think it is reasonable to wonder if Zack Moss is a system running back or not. Because let's be honest, he looked great with the Colts, and he looked great in Shane Steichen's system that they ran last year. But let's be honest, before he got into Shane Steichen's system and when he was with the Bills over there in Buffalo, he was an inconsistent guy. He didn't average a lot of rushing yards per game. He wasn't as electric and explosive and consistent as he was before he got into Shane Steichen's system. So given that, I think it is reasonable to wonder, is this guy going to put up the same production if he is not in the same offense he was in last year? So that's my main concern about Zack Moss, but I think he showed us a lot last year, and I think with his price, I think it'd be a pretty nice pickup for the Browns to have him as the number two running back behind Nick Chubb. And like I said, I think he'd be a great guy behind Nick Chubb if Nick Chubb were just not there at all. I think he'd be a great guy behind Nick Chubb if Nick Chubb was there and was playing. And I think Zack Moss would be a great guy to help keep Nick Chubb's legs fresh and have an adequate running back when Nick Chubb is off the field. Now, let's look at the number one guy I want the Browns to look at this offseason as a backup to Nick Chubb. It is Mr. DeAndre Swift, everybody. Give me DeAndre Swift in Cleveland, man. I feel like he's just everything you would want in a backup running back. I think we can all agree that obviously Nick Chubb is on another tier of running backs than DeAndre Swift. But let me be honest with you right here. If the Browns had DeAndre Swift and Nick Chubb on the same team, you cannot convince me that you do not have two number one running backs on one team, everybody. I believe that adding DeAndre Swift behind Nick Chubb is a absolute perfect way to have a guy who can pick up slack behind Nick Chubb. I think that is just incredible for this team if they were to add DeAndre Swift. Now, like Zack Moss, DeAndre Swift is a guy who has proven he can get it done as a number two running back, but he can also get it done if you need him to step in and really take all or a bulk of the carries. So I feel like Zack Moss in that way, DeAndre Swift is good for that. But the difference is DeAndre Swift is an 1,000-yard Pro Bowl running back, which makes this even better for the Browns if they were able to sign him. Now, he'd be for a nice affordable price. I believe his market value is somewhere between $6 million to maybe like $9 million. I feel like the Browns would be willing to pay for that. I feel like they'd be able to afford it too. I feel like the fact that the Browns actually tried to trade for DeAndre Swift before makes this even more realistic of a possibility. Not only knowing that they wanted to trade for him before last offseason during draft season, but also just knowing, oh, the guy we wanted to trade for last offseason got even better as a running back this past season. I think that would be incredible. I think in terms of skill set, he's obviously a guy you could use. He's a 3-down running back, nice receiving back. He's productive, like I said, a 1,000-yard running back last year with the Eagles. He's not afraid of contact. That's one thing the Browns were lacking with Jerome Ford. I also feel like DeAndre Swift, even though he does make one too many cuts sometimes, he is a good one-cut running back. He does have good vision. He is elusive. He's explosive. Look, I like the idea of signing Zack Moss as a backup to Nick Chubb, knowing that Zack Moss has proven he can do it. I just feel like adding DeAndre Swift would just be next level. I feel like it'd be even better. And just knowing that the Browns had prior interest in him before, I feel like there's a realistic possibility that, look, not only do the Browns look at DeAndre Swift being in Cleveland, but I feel like there's a chance that DeAndre Swift or even Zack Moss could end up in Cleveland, but especially DeAndre Swift just because the Browns had prior interest in him before everybody. But look, like I said, I feel like it's going to be paramount for the Browns to have a really good number 2 running back this year, so you have a guy that can pick up a load if you need to really slow down the workload on Nick Chubb, or if Nick Chubb is going to be absent for the first few games of the year, just because I think last year, look, we saw how important a run game is to this team. You need a run game if your pass game is not going. You need another way to get yards. And if you have a good run game, you make it easier on your passing offense because your run game will be able to get the job done on earlier downs, therefore resulting on easier second and third downs for your passing offense in passing situations. So look, man, those were my 2 dudes that I feel the Browns need to look at this offseason in terms of number 2 running backs. And if they can't get either of those guys, like I said earlier in the video, I feel like it'd be in their best interest to go then look at the trade market for a number 2 running back that you can trust behind Nick Chubb, everybody. But other than that, hope you guys enjoy the video. Give me your comments and thoughts down in the comment section below, everybody. Other than that, this has been Malik Hicks, a.k.a. The Ranker of Dogs by the Sword, signing off. Peace out, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.